Today, we're going to dive into a pretty incredible 90-day experiment that all started with just $127 in a bank account. This is a story about how changing your thoughts about money, well, it's not magic. It's actually a methodical process of rewiring your brain for wealth. And it all kicked off in a single, pretty desperate moment. So to really get this whole transformation, we have to go right back to the beginning. We're talking rock bottom, that one moment of pure financial fear that kicked the whole thing off. $127. That's it. Just picture this for a second. It's late, almost midnight. You're in a small apartment in Texas, and you look at your bank account. And that number, that single number, is all that's left. It's all that stands between you and absolute zero. And get this was March 2020. You remember, right? The world was basically shutting down. So for this freelance worker, projects were just vanishing. And that number in the bank account, it wasn't just low, it was terrifying. But, and this is the crazy part, something happened over the next 90 days that completely, and I mean completely, flipped the script. So the big question is, how in the world do you turn that around? You know, the answer wasn't some new job or a lucky break or a loan. Nope. It came from a really unlikely place. Something stumbled upon out of just sheer desperation. 7 simple affirmations. Okay, I know what some of you might be thinking. Affirmations? Really? So before you roll your eyes and click away, let's be super clear here. This is not a story about manifesting money out of thin air. Not at all. It's about the very real, tangible work of rewiring your brain. And believe me, the difference between those two things is absolutely critical. So here's the core difference, right? On one side, you've got what we call magical thinking. That's just, repeating some words and hoping a check appears in the mail. But on the other side, you have psychological rewiring. This is totally different. It's about using these phrases as a tool, like a mental crowbar, to break down the specific blocks in your head that are stopping you from actually earning. See the difference? The affirmations don't make the money. They change you into the person who can. All right, so let's get practical. Enough with the theory, let's actually walk through the first leg of this 90-day journey. We're going to look at the exact affirmations that were used, and more importantly, the real-world tangible results they actually produced. So it all started with this one. This was the foundation. I am capable of creating value that people will pay for. Now, this one was designed to go straight for the jugular of the most common mental block out there, right? That deep, nagging fear that what you do, it just isn't worth that much money. And here's the specific block it was targeting. For years, anytime a client would ask, "So, what's your rate?" Boom, instant panic. That cold sweat feeling, right? And it always led to blurting out some low number just to avoid rejection. It was this vicious cycle of constantly underselling your own skills. But then, after just 2 weeks of drilling this affirmation in every single morning, something shifted. A new client asked for a quote. Instead of panicking, the rate was doubled. Just like that. And you know what? They said yes. No hesitation. That one project, that one moment of courage brought in $1,200. That was more than the last 2 months of work combined. Wow. Okay, so next up in this rewiring process was tackling emotional baggage. The second affirmation was this: money is a tool, not my identity. And the whole point here was to finally separate how much money you have from who you are as a person. The big block here? It was shame, a really deep sense of shame. Being broke didn't feel like a temporary situation. It felt like a permanent stain on your character. And that shame makes it almost impossible to have a confident conversation about money, let alone negotiate or, God forbid, chase up an unpaid invoice. But by reframing money as just a neutral tool, like a hammer or a spreadsheet, all that emotional weight just vanished. Suddenly, following up on an unpaid invoice wasn't this embarrassing personal plea for help. It was just a simple business task. And the result? $1,800 collected. And listen to this, $600 of that was from old invoices that shame would have just left to die. All right, affirmation number 3. This one was all about changing the kind of clients you're attracting. The idea was to shift from this mindset of desperation, where you'll take any work that comes your way, to a place of deliberate choice, being selective. Because when you're operating from that place of scarcity, you just attract clients who reflect that right back at you. We're talking low-paying, super high-maintenance projects that just suck the life out of you. It's a total self-fulfilling prophecy. So as this affirmation became part of the daily routine, something interesting happened. Those nightmare clients, they just kind of started to fade away. And in the space they left behind, a really high-quality design agency showed up. They paid on time, they were respectful, and they became a key source of income, bringing in $2,400 over the next 6 weeks, a total game changer. And this whole process really shows the power of the fourth affirmation, which was, every dollar is a stepping stone. It all kicked off with this tiny $200 project, something the old mindset would have just scoffed at, right? But by seeing it as a stepping stone, it led to a referral, which then turned into a $900 project. And guess what? That led to another referral and a $1,500 project. So that one little $200 stone, it ended up building a path to over $2,500 in new work. It's like a domino effect. Okay, so this next part, this is the real climax of the story. This is the moment where all of this internal brain rewiring gets put to the ultimate test. It all comes down to one single high-stakes decision. So out of the blue, a big offer lands, a $3,000 project. Now, just a few months earlier, this would have been an instant, no-brainer, desperate yes. No questions asked, just grab the money. But the new mindset saw what the old one would have been blind to. The project was just riddled with red flags. We're talking terrible terms, a completely unrealistic deadline, and that classic warning sign, payment after completion. You know that spells trouble. And this was the moment of truth. What do you do? Do you slide back into those old, fearful patterns and just grab the cash? Or do you trust this new mindset and make a decision from a place of abundance, even if it means turning down $3,000? And the answer was a polite no. Can you imagine fighting back that absolute gut punch of panic as you watched $3,000 walk out the door? But the decision was made. Trust the process. Decline the wrong opportunity. And here it is. This is the punchline. Just 3 days later, a different client reaches out. The project? Pretty similar. But the offer was for $3,500 with much better terms and a deposit paid up front. It's the perfect illustration, right? Saying no to the bad fit literally created the space to say yes to the right one. So when you look back at this whole 90-day journey, the crucial takeaway isn't that just saying some words out loud makes money appear in your bank account. No, the real lesson here is so much more practical and powerful. Here's the core lesson, the big aha moment. The affirmations didn't create a single opportunity. They were already out there. The affirmations were just the tool used to demolish the mental barriers. Things like undercharging, that feeling of shame, the scarcity thinking, that were making those opportunities completely invisible. And that really brings us to the final and maybe most important question. This whole incredible journey started by identifying just one single limiting belief. So I'll leave you with this to think about. What is the one belief about money that you are holding on to that if you could just rewire it would change absolutely everything?